Good evening, and welcome to our first Zoom interview from Dovetails. We have a very special guest tonight, Alexis Krikorian of Hyestart, who's joining us from Geneva. Good evening, Alexis. I met Alexis a number of years ago in Istanbul when we were both international observers at the trial of a publisher. Alexis then went on to found the charity Hyestart, which campaigns for Armenians and for their cultural heritage. So welcome tonight, Alexis. You are going to talk to us about the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh, which is a very underreported war in this country, and I think probably the rest of Europe. There have been thousands of deaths, officially in the low thousands, but we gather that there are many more. And also many deaths of ordinary people, hundreds of them. A doctor in Stepanakert said that between 300 and 400 people had died by the end of October. And those figures have been recorded officially as 150. I'm pretty sure that's not accurate. 70,000 ordinary people have been displaced. So Alexis, can you give us a bit about the background to this?
Yes. Well, good evening. Thank you, Jean, for having me on this first interview in the Dovetails series. I'm very, very happy and very honored. And as you said, we met in 2003 in Istanbul. I still remember this encounter, I think, in the old town, as we were on trial observation mission, and we were gathering in the evening before the trial, and since then we've been in contact, and I'm very happy to be and honored to be the first one, and I follow your amazing work with Dovetails, so I'm very happy to be here. As you said, on the 27th of September, Azerbaijan, with the full support of Turkey and hundreds, and if not thousands, of Syrian mercenaries, launched a large-scale attack on the unrecognized Republic of Karabakh. It is a republic that's located between Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Iran. The air superiority of Azerbaijan and Turkey, with Turkish F-16s, Turkish Bayraktar drones, Israeli killer drones, was such that Armenians lost a lot of grounds. They resisted for 44 days, but after losing a lot of grounds, they were forced into signing a ceasefire declaration on the 10th of November, a one-sided declaration from an Armenian perspective, because at the end of this war, and according to this declaration, Armenia lost 3/4 of the territories of the Republic of Karabakh, without having any guarantee regarding the future status of the Republic. And we now have Russian peacekeepers on what's left of the territory of the Republic, keeping peace, even though it's been mostly maintained since the 10th of November, but over the weekend, Azerbaijan broke the ceasefire with the support of 250 men of the Turkish special forces to capture the last 2 Armenian villages of the Hadrut region of Karabakh. And this came 2 days after a victory parade in Baku, Azerbaijan, where Erdogan praised the memory of Enver Pasha, one of the main architects and perpetrators of the Armenian genocide, and also responsible for the massacre of 10,000 of Armenians in Baku in 1918, and adding that, and I will quote, the fight of Azerbaijan against Armenia was not over. And during the same parade, Aliyev also claimed that Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, Syunik, the south of Armenia, and the Seven Lake region of Armenia, so pretty much most of Armenia, was Azeri land. And of course, all of this was said without, as you said, I mean, in widespread indifference and without a word of condemnation. And I can't help but wondering if what the world would have said if, say, a Merkel, a leader like Merkel, would have praised the memory of a Himmler, for instance.
Yes.
And as you said, at the end of this war, we don't know the exact figures yet, but 3,000 Armenian soldiers died. Mostly they were aged between the age of 18, 19, 21, 22. And to imagine the sheer violence of this 44-day war with the drones, as I said earlier, mostly, there's also thousands of injured people, badly injured people. It is as if Scotland in a 44-day war had lost 5,000 young men between the age of 18 and 22, 23, or as if the United Kingdom had lost around 65,000 young men of the same age during a 44-day war.
Yes, we're looking at an image here of an Armenian soldier burying one of his colleagues. But Alexis, what about the civilians? What has happened with them?
Well, officially in Karabakh, there are 55 civilians who were dead during the course of the war. But as you said, according to other sources, we are talking about 300, between 400. And although not very well reported in the media, as you said, the war crimes of Azerbaijan have been documented, and we're talking about the use of cluster bombs, the use of incendiary ammunition, the beheadings of Armenian soldiers and civilians, the use of Syrian mercenaries, and the bombing of civilian infrastructure, religious or apartment buildings, for instance. And as you said, as a consequence of that, of these bombings, between 60 and 80% of the civilian population of Karabakh, with a pre-war population of 150,000, have had to flee to Armenia proper. They were fleeing the bombs, and they were fleeing what they know would have been massacres if the Armenians had lost completely. I want to underline here that, just as a matter of example, on the 22nd of October, so in the middle of the war, the International Association of Genocide Scholars issued a genocide alert for the Armenians of Karabakh, coming from Azerbaijan. And so that's why all these civilians, including the most vulnerable populations, the children, the women, the elderly, the handicapped people had to flee. And after the ceasefire agreement of the 10th, you may have seen these pictures. People who were leaving the territories that Armenia had lost were burning their homes, and in some cases even digging out their graves of their loved ones, bring the corpses with them to Armenia to avoid desecration. So yes, and now there are a lot. Some are returning to Karabakh. Some civilians are returning to Karabakh. What's left of it under the protection of Russian peacekeepers. But a lot are afraid and have lost their homes and are refugees in Armenia and need support. And some also don't go back because they don't feel safe. As I said, over the weekend, Azerbaijan and Turkey broke out the ceasefire to capture two Armenian villages.
We've heard terrible stories about atrocities. Would you like to tell us about this one, Alexis?
Yes, this here is an old gentleman, a civilian, Armenian. It's a video that was broadcasted on an Azeri Telegram channel whose name you have seen on the picture you showed. He's an old man. He's begging for his life in Azeri Turkish, but it's been confirmed that he was an Armenian because of, for instance, his accent. And the soldiers there are cutting his throat and then are beheading him. And there's been a lot of such videos on social media. The frequency and the sheer amount of this video indicates that this is done with the encouragement of the Azeri authorities, unfortunately.
This particular tweet had 631 likes.
Yes.
No, this is...
That's yes, that also struck me, and I wondered why. And I think there are a couple of reasons. Well, as I said in the beginning, there is state-sponsored Armenophobia. I mean, in both Turkey and Azerbaijan, there are videos you can find online showing that in Azeri schools, children are taught to hate Armenians, to see the Armenian as the fundamental enemy. To give a personal example, even though I am not an Armenian citizen, I have an Armenian last name, and back in 2004, the year after we met, Jean, I was not allowed to go to the conference, the IFEX conference in Baku, Azerbaijan. IFEX being the International Freedom of Expression network of freedom of expression NGOs, because of my last name, and I was told that I couldn't go because I would put in danger the whole meeting. And,
so much for freedom of expression, really.
Yes, absolutely. Looking back at it, I wish it had been condemned, but unfortunately, no, it wasn't, and it was accepted. And this tells a lot, I think, about, as I said, also the declarations about Turkish and Azeri leaders over the last. I mean, on International Human Rights Day, the March parade was on the 10th of December, International Human Rights Day. They came out with these incredible statements, and without a single word of condemnation by other world leaders. And another reason why I think there are so many likes on such horrible videos showing horrendous crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity, is that, as I said, there is this state-sponsored Armenophobia, but there is also Azerbaijan has financial means with oil and gas. And for instance, just to give you one example, Facebook, it took Facebook months, but in the end they did it. They closed 8,000 pages of fake accounts linked to the Azeri regime. And these voices, or fake voices rather, because we're talking about troll farms, are so loud and so aggressive that celebrities, for instance, who had initially voiced their support for the Armenians who were attacked in this war, like Carly B or Elton John, had to withdraw their support because they were attacked on social media by this mix of real social media profiles and fake profiles.
Yes, that's endemic, isn't it? You've mentioned the oil. That seems to be a very important trigger for this action. We're looking here at an image of the Trans-Adriatic pipeline.
Yes, as homes were burning, people were fleeing their homes. The construction of the Trans-Adriatic pipeline was in its final days of completion. The TAP opened in mid-November. So essentially a week after the ceasefire agreement of the 10th of November, and it's been labeled one of Europe's most strategic projects. As you can see, this is the last link allowing the transport of gas from the Caspian Sea, from Azerbaijan through Turkey to Europe. The shareholders are from all over Europe. There is, of course, SOCAR, which is the Azeri state oil and gas company at 20%, but also BP, for instance.
BP, 20%. And we're talking about a lot of money here, aren't we? I mean, 3.9 billion.
No, it is. I mean, it is clearly a lot. This is to decrease, I think, the dependency of Europe, of the European Union and other European countries on the gas from Russia. So that's why I think it's been, by the sponsors of this project labeled one of Europe's most strategic projects. And I think that's why this is not the only reason, but this is one of the reasons why Europe in general and European countries individually have been neutral in this conflict and didn't want to take a side and didn't want to condemn the aggressor.
Yes, I mean, it has been a huge thing. Here we have all the leaders,
yes,
who are.
Well, as you can see, yes, I mean, it's a good slide. It's a picture back from 2006 for the inauguration of another pipeline, the BTC pipeline. But the common point with the previous one, the Trans-Adriatic pipeline, is that it's taking gas and oil from the Caspian Sea, so from Azerbaijan to the rest of the world and to Europe. And on this picture, you can see the then leader of Georgia, the then president of Turkey, the then CEO of BP, John Brown, and the then and current leaders of Azerbaijan and Turkey, Aliyev and Erdogan. And if you look closely on the map, you will see under the red line, which is the pipeline itself, the small country of Armenia. And at the bottom of it, you will see that the south of Armenia is actually cut out, so that Azerbaijan goes directly through Turkey to Turkey. And I think that was one of the war goals of Azerbaijan and Turkey, was to, there were several, to win back Karabakh, to drive Armenians out who had fled, Aliyev said on the 10th of November, like dogs, and to connect Turkey with Azerbaijan through the south of Armenia, and also connecting Turkey with the Caspian Sea and Central Asia. This is an old pan-Turkic dream that for now has been achieved by Turkey and Azerbaijan through this war, because one of the points of the ceasefire declaration of the 10th of November, and it's point 9, says that there shall be transport corridors between the Azeri exclave of Nakhichevan to the main part of Azerbaijan, going through the south of Armenia. And as I said, during the victory parade last week, Aliyev again claimed as Azeri land the south of Armenia. So there is a risk for the territorial integrity of Armenia proper, a very high risk right now. And what this picture tells me, and it's incredibly violent symbolically, is that a company like BP and its CEO, at least indirectly, seems to me, is supporting such a war goal by simply being, officially, publicly taken picture of with the leaders of these countries and in front of such a map.
Yes, yeah, and of course, this has all been happening in plain sight, but completely underreported, because the media have obviously been busy with other things.
Yes, absolutely. I think the timing of this war is crucial. From a Turkish and Azeri perspective, it's incredibly smart, I suppose, because it was launched when the world was and is still busy with COVID. and when the world was busy with the American elections.
Yes.
As I said, the war started on 27th of September, and for some reason, I mean, in European countries, all the media was talking about was mostly American elections and COVID.
Yes.
Also, maybe also, with national specificities, I suppose, like in the UK, Brexit maybe, and etc. and France.
Not much, no. That's coming back in now, but no, not really. Just COVID, and the US elections, yes.
And also, I think Erdogan had also with Trump a true friend in the White House.
Yeah.
Just facts: Trump has Trump Towers in Istanbul. CNN reported that Trump was taking Erdogan, for instance, up to 2 times on the phone per week, unfiltered, which was unique among world leaders.
Yes.
Also, another example was also reported that the then national security advisor of Trump, Michael Flynn, we talk a lot about him in the media in relation to Russia, but very rarely in relation to Turkey. But on election day, on Trump election day, 4 years ago, this Michael Flynn wrote an article entitled "We Need to See the World from Turkish Perspective." And I think that tells you a lot. And from an American perspective, I think Turkey is seen as an important NATO ally that can do pretty much whatever it wants. And I think a Biden administration wouldn't have been different from that perspective. I do think they would have done more to stop the bloodshed. But just to add to illustrate what I just said, Secretary of State Pompeo on October 1st declared that Karabakh, the Armenian Republic of Karabakh, and I quote, was a piece of real estate, therefore suggesting, I believe, that the highest bidder could, if you excuse me, grab it. And also Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, went on an official visit to Turkey on the 5th of October. And he called, so a few days after the beginning of the war, and he called Turkey a valued NATO ally and member.
Yes.
So there's at least some indication that is implicit support for this war of aggression by Western countries, even though, of course, officially they called on the hostilities to stop.
And of course, Turkey has been very useful to Europe in taking in large numbers of refugees, being paid for it, but they have taken the heat off European countries. So they're a very useful country in that sense. In Turkey, we're looking at a slide here from the Hrant Dink Foundation, and if you look at it, the Armenians are top of the sort of hate speech graph in Turkey. This has been going on a very long time, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been going on for a long time, and I've looked at these reports by the Dink Foundation, and consistently, I mean, they do it on a quarterly basis, and 9 times out of 10, the Armenians are top of the chart. And I think it's linked to, as I said, to state-sponsored Armenophobia. There are many examples of this. I mean, physically, number one, I mean, Armenians made up, you can discuss figures, but let's say 15% of the population of Turkey at the beginning of the 20th century. And now it's only 0.1%. And despite that fact, they still come up as the most hated group, I mean, targeted group by hate speech in Turkey, despite having completely disappeared physically. Minorities have a secret code given by the Turkish state. For Armenians, it's number 2, that prevent them from accessing maybe some functions in the state apparatus. In 1942, during World War II, they were subjected to a wealth tax. all minorities, but again, the minority that was the most hardly hit by a tax, I believe, of 242% was Armenians, to drive them out again of Turkey. There are many examples. There used to be 2,500 churches in Turkey, Armenian churches, at the beginning of the 20th century. Only a few remain. So yes, it is. And again, going back to Erdogan, who's been in power since 2003, during a rally, electoral rally in 2015, and that just to give you one example, he declared he was referring to his opponents, they have called me a Georgian. And then I keep quoting, they have even called me uglier things. They have called me Armenian. And I think that that quote tells a lot about, because it's the state.
Yeah, it's historic in Turkey, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, the first massacres of Armenians started in the late 19th century, and Sultan Abdulhamid, called the Red Sultan. And then there were more massacres, like in 1909, where 30,000 Armenians were slaughtered. And of course, the 1915 Armenian genocide, where up to 1.5 million Armenians were killed. And as the Ottoman Empire was falling apart, a lot of nations were looking for their independence. I mean, Greece got its independence in 1830, Bulgaria got its independence, and Armenia were also inspiring to that, a bit like Karabakh Armenians today. And the answer from the Turkish state was that what it was, large-scale massacres, planned massacres of the Armenian population, and to solve the problem that way, in the most radical and horrible manner.
Yes, and of course, one of the things that they have also done is like the genocide of Armenian souls, really, your culture. This tweet is about the Dadavank monastery, which is now being called Huravan.
And also Caucasian Albanian. I mean, from a scientific point of view, I mean, you only need go online on sites like Wikipedia to see that this is falsification of history. And I think, again, like in Turkey in the past, where so many Armenian churches have been destroyed or have been used as a ground for military drills, for instance, is to simply to say that Armenians have actually never lived there. And regarding Azerbaijan specifically, we are very worried about the fate of Armenian cultural heritage in the areas now controlled by Azerbaijan of Karabakh. And that's based on what happened in Nakhichevan, this Azeri exclave I was talking about earlier, where between 1998 and 2005, the Armenian medieval cemetery of Julfa was completely destroyed with the very special Armenian art of Khachkar. And you're showing a picture now where you see these cross stones, tombstones. There were 10,000 of them. And they were completely destroyed. And again, I think without any international condemnation. And one reason here we can advance, there may be others, but it's been proven by a collective of investigative journalists, the OCCRP. You can go on their website, and they came up with an investigation a few years ago called the Azeri Laundromat, where they proved that Azerbaijan had a slush fund to bribe European leaders, politicians and cultural leaders and other types of leaders to influence them. And one of them was the husband of the then Secretary General of UNESCO, Irina Bokova, who received up to $500,000. And so that sheds light on this, I think, on this silence by international bodies. And now we are really calling on UNESCO again, and other countries like France, the UK, Russia, anybody who has influence to say that that these Armenian monuments have to be preserved.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, we have been silent. What can we do in Europe?
I think, from our perspective, there are three things that can be done. As I said, we need to preserve. I mean, there's the humanitarian help, because as we said, many people were made to leave, were forced to leave their homes. The humanitarian needs are simply huge, and there are many things that can be done on the Hyestart Get Involved web page of the website. You can see that we are collecting money for the My Way Vocational Training Center for children with autism in Armenia. But in terms of advocacy, I think right now there are three things that can be done. Calling for the recognition of the Republic of Karabakh, or at the very least for the right to self-determination of the Armenians of Karabakh. We think secession, remedial secession, is the best solution there is to protect the lives of the Armenians of Artsakh, of Karabakh. Artsakh is the Armenian name, to protect their right to live on their ancestral homeland. We also need to have an international investigation into the war crimes and crimes against humanity that have been led in this country. One way of doing that would be, for instance, for a member of the Security Council of the United Nations to put on the agenda the referral of the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court to prosecute and investigate these war crimes. Would be to take sanctions, economic, diplomatic, against Turkey and Azerbaijan, and yes, also to preserve the Armenian heritage. And one way of doing that, of course, if in the UK, one city has adopted such a resolution calling for the recognition of the Republic of Karabakh. That's the city of Derby. And I think if in Scotland, such cities like Glasgow could do the same, or even the Scottish Parliament or Scottish Government. I know, I mean, the right to self-determination, it's something that's very important in Scotland, I believe.
Absolutely, yes, and Dovetails will write to the Scottish government and ask them to recognise the independence of Artsakh. Thank you very much, Alexis. It's been a most informative and wonderful to have you with us and to let us know about all of what has been going on in Nagorno-Karabakh. Thank you so much.